processes that happen every single second. The body is a fine-tuned machine, or it should be. And so we have all these reactions, these processes going on. We have nutrients being made, we have nutrients being broken down. And this is the metabolism of the body. And so a lot of times when we think metabolism from social media or the news, we think of it as fat burning or digestion or losing weight or having a lean body mass or a slim waistline, that sort of thing. And that's part of it. But really, the metabolism is a sum total. And so if we want to look good, if we want to feel good, if we want to lose weight, then we need to have our metabolism in balance. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. And GLP-3 is the world's premier human metabolic health product. And I want to talk about why that is. This is because GLP-3 targets several different pathways in the body. And so I want to talk about the ingredients in GLP-3. I want to talk about how it works, and then we'll talk about some real world results. So when it comes to GLP-3, we have this product in liquid form. And it was a Herculean effort to take all of the bioactives and put them into this bottle, GLP-3, which is an 11 milliliter bottle. 11 milliliter fill is what we have in GLP-3. And there's lots of bioactive molecules in there. In fact, if you were to count the actual molecules in GLP-3, there would be millions and millions of molecules. So think about that. When you're taking even one dose of GLP-3, you're getting millions of individual molecules going into your body. Isn't that exciting? I just love that. I envision that. See these beautiful molecules flowing into the body, flowing through the systems, activating the pathways, the cascades to improve human health. And so, because of all these bioactive molecules you have in GLP-3, that's one reason why sometimes when you pull the dropper out, it might be plugged a little bit. And that's because all of these molecules sitting on the surface, when they come in contact with that dropper, inside that dropper, there's air, and that forms a little bit of a gradient. And so you have molecules flowing up, trying to hit that gradient, trying to go with the flow with that air, and that causes these molecules to be pulled up and to go back down, pull up and go back down, and that causes some crystallization. And so it's very easy if you have that. When you open up your GLP-3, you just take it, warm it, run it under warm water for a few seconds, and away you go. So, one of the hallmark ingredients of GLP-3 is our MBC267 complex. And when I say complex, whenever we use the word complex, that means there's more than one molecule. A lot of times there's lots of molecules. And in the case of MBC267, there's hundreds of peptides. Now, when we talk about peptides, what's a peptide? So, we'll do a review. A peptide is multiple amino acids strung together. That's the definition of a peptide. And so 5, 7, 13, 50 amino acids strung together, those are peptides. And here at 3 International, we've been using peptides since the inception of our company. An example is our collagen product has collagen peptides. It has a dipeptide, a hydroxyproline proline, that's responsible for helping the body to make collagen again. And then when we created our Visage skincare line, we again turned to peptides. And we have a lot of peptides, especially in our super serum and in our creme caviar, that help to make the skin beautiful, bright, glowing, that help to smooth out the skin to help it to look beautiful. And so we've been using peptides for a while. Now, when we were developing this human metabolic health product that was GLP-3, again, we wanted to turn to peptides. And what we found in looking around, there was lots of different peptide sources that we looked to. One thing that we did not look to is we did not look to synthetic peptides. Here at 3 International, we are big believers in the power of molecules from Mother Nature. In fact, I believe that Mother Nature has placed molecules here on this earth, many of which we haven't discovered yet, that are vital for improving and maintaining and supporting human health. And so we look to natural peptides. And we found these peptides in the form of salmon in the Norwegian Sea. Salmon growing deep in the Norwegian Sea, specifically mature salmon, we found that there's an ingredient called salmon protein hydrolysate. And that's the inky name that's on the bottle of GLP-3. And if you look in the guides and indexes, that's the name of it. But Most importantly, in this salmon protein hydrolysate, you have many different types of peptides. And these peptides are signaling peptides. And there's a bunch of different peptides in this product that do different things. And so some of these peptides can actually interact with the GLP-1 receptor and cause this GLP-1 pathway to move forward. And so they can stand in the place of or support healthy GLP-1 levels of the natural GLP-1 peptide. And what's really cool is we've also found that there are peptides that can interact and support health of a enzyme called DPP4. So the way it works, when GLP-1 is the natural peptide the body makes. And what's really cool is GLP-1 is part of a class of hormones called incretins, INCRETINS. And these hormones, and when we say hormone, we're really just meaning a molecule that's a messenger that carries a message. And so GLP-1 is part of a messenger carrying system, class of molecules that are responsible for when we eat. That's what it means when we say incretin. And so the cool thing is that when we start to eat, the body recognizes this and it starts a molecular cascade such that in the small intestine, in L cells, GLP-1 is produced. And this GLP-1 then, once it's produced, it goes into circulation. And as I've talked about before, GLP-1 has a half-life of 1 to 2 minutes. It doesn't last in the body very long. And so GLP-1 circulates throughout the body and it needs to find a receptor and it binds to that receptor, the GLP-1 receptor. But DPP4, DPP4, its job is to break down GLP-1. Well, in the research, if you look in the scientific research, or you could even type it into AI. AI is kind of like our lie detector here. DPP4, what it does is it breaks down GLP-1. And we found that there are peptides, natural peptides in salmon that can actually inhibit the ability of DPP4 to bind to and degrade GLP-1. So if we tie up DPP4 and we take it out of the equation just a little bit, what does that mean for GLP-1? Well, it means that it has a little more time to find a receptor and bind to the receptor. And so that's a mechanism that we haven't talked about before here with our GLP-3 product, but it's a real mechanism. The reason why I'm saying that is there's multiple different mechanisms by which GLP-3 works. And so we have this NBC 267 peptides from salmon and mushroom. So here at 3, we focus on peptides. We love peptides, and we are at the forefront of peptide research in the natural space in order to improve human health. And that's our promise to you. With our science, with our technology, with what we do, we're always going to be at the forefront and we're always going to be pushing forward and finding solutions to human metabolic health. So what we did with our NBC 267 is we added other ingredients to it. We added saffron, and we added specific molecules called safranal and quercetin. Because remember, for us, it's all about the molecules. It's not the plant name or the spice name. It's the molecules that are there. And so what we found is that safranal and quercetin, they actually can support healthy glucose and insulin levels. And that's a big deal. And GLP-1, its job, why it works, how it's working, its function, what it was born to do was to support healthy blood sugar and blood insulin levels. Because when we eat something, it's broken down into sugar, simple carbohydrates, and those simple carbohydrates enter the cell. So glucose levels rise, and then there's the hormone insulin. Insulin rises to meet it to stabilize that glucose response. And so GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is responsible for this process. So it helps to support healthy glucose levels, healthy insulin levels. And the other thing that GLP-1 is, it could slow gastric emptying just a little bit. That's what it does. That's its design, so that it can slow the flow of traffic, so that there's no metabolic bottlenecks. It's kind of like on the freeway, on the highway. If you try to enter the highway at rush hour in these big cities or even smaller cities, you notice they have those lights, right? a light in front of each lane, and one lane turns green and it says you can either let one or two cars go through, and then the other one, and then the other one, and then the other one. Well, why do they do that? They do that to mediate traffic flow, and it's really cool. And in traffic science, they found that even doing that, even just giving a second or two between cars, can make the difference between having a gridlock and having it take an hour for cars to go through that stretch versus having them take 10 minutes to go through that same stretch just by doing that. And the same thing is true in our metabolism in human biology. GLP-1 is this gatekeeper that dictates glucose and insulin levels in the body. And it also then delays gastric emptying, which then helps us to feel fuller longer. And when we start to feel full, then there's other hormones in the body, leptin and ghrelin, that cause that feeling full signal. And those are also incretin hormones. And so the body has this beautiful system. The problem is our metabolism is out of balance due to lifestyle factors like poor diet, lack of sleep, lack of exercise, stress, anxiety, soil depletion. The modern processed diet, especially, I want you to remember that the modern processed diet is one of the major issues that can cause damage to our metabolism because we're not eating anything medicinal. So that's why we use our NBC 267, we use safranal, we use quercetin, we use bitter acids, alpha bitter acids from hops. One thing that's really interesting is in the body, there are bitter taste receptors, and they're on the tongue, and they're also elsewhere in the body. Have you ever noticed that when you eat something that's really, really bitter, you don't have an appetite? You don't really or can't really eat too much of it? Well, that's the body's mechanism. It's interesting. It's actually a chemical ecology mechanism that's evolved because a lot of times bitter plants were poisonous. And so there's that, and that's kind of the body's way of saying, hey, you really don't want to eat a lot of this. But even if there are good molecules that are bitter, these bitter taste receptors are activated and it actually decreases appetite. So one of the cool things, the reason why we added alpha bitter acids in there, and we mask the bitterness, by the way, right? GLP-3 tastes delicious, but we mask the bitterness, but those molecules still bind to those bitter taste receptors, and that reduces appetite. So that's one reason why we have the alpha bitter acids from hops in there. And then we have ginsenoside. Ginsenoside are powerful because they're chemical messengers, and they're actually messengers upstream of GLP-1. And so we have in the L cells where GLP-1 is produced. But that actually takes a lot of circuitry, a lot of wiring for that process to even happen. And so that's why we put ginsenosides from ginseng in there, is because they help to make sure the connection, the wire between making GLP-1 and these signaling cascades is functioning properly. And so you can see that what we've done is we have this whole process that we've put together where in order to have good human metabolic health, we're targeting pathways from the beginning of the GLP-1 circuit all the way to where it interacts with the GLP-1 receptor, and then even further downstream, where then by activating this cascade, it helps to support a healthy appetite, glucose, insulin levels, like we talked about. So that was kind of a deep dive into chemical biology and biochemistry, but I thought it was helpful to help us understand really just the marvel of the human body. Isn't it cool that all these systems are in place? It's just an amazing thing. But what's just as cool, or even more cool, is that we can use natural molecules. That Mother Nature has molecules that have been discovered and molecules that haven't been discovered yet that we're in the process of doing to support these metabolic health pathways. And so the net result is this beautiful GLP-3 product. And people are seeing phenomenal results on this product. And tonight I am grateful to be here with 5 amazing guests, dear friends that are here to share their experience about GLP.